Combat is the bread and butter of God of War, and Ragnarok is no exception, though it can get quite frustrating at times. So let's dive into all the most essential tips you need to begin mastering combat in Ragnarok, including some hidden mechanics the game won't tell you about. And don't worry, there won't be any story spoilers here as long as you've played through Alfheim. Let's first do a speed round of all the more well-known tips, just to make sure we're all on the same page with the basics. Even if you think you know all these, check them off with me to make sure I didn't miss any. If I did, leave a comment down below to help other players out. Ready? Go. Tripping enemies with the axe is a great way to down them so you can follow up with a more powerful attack, or bounce them off the ground with a heavy attack to start juggling them. To trip enemies, throw the axe at their legs. Similarly, you can freeze small enemies by landing an R2 heavy axe throw on them, which totally immobilizes them until you recall the axe. This either takes them out of the fight until you're ready to deal with them, or lets you deal damage or knock them off ledges for an instant kill. Speaking of which, anytime you have an enemy backed up against a ledge, try to use the shield bash, parry, R2 kick, or a series of R1 light attacks to push them off for an instant kill. When fighting a group, it's smart to take out ranged enemies first so you don't have to worry about their projectiles. These enemies are usually weak and can be killed with a couple throws of the axe, or direct hits if you can reach them. Runic attacks can be very strong, but they all have a cooldown period. Consider using your runic attacks at the start of a fight so they can be recharged and used again. Remember, those runic attacks have limited invincibility frames, so you have to be careful about when you trigger them. Single tap dodges and double tap rolls do have iframes though, so you can dodge through attacks with them, but the window is short, so you need to be careful. An R3 stun grab is the only way to get an extended period of iframes. You're totally invincible during this animation. Most enemies have some kind of weakness you can exploit. It just takes some experimenting to figure out what they are. For example, if you hit light elves in their mask, it will stun them instantly. You can queue up weapon swaps by hitting left or right on the D-pad before an attack animation is over. For example, if you're finishing up an axe combo, you can hit left on the D-pad before it's over, and Kratos will pull out the blades as soon as the axe combo animation is complete. Permafrost and Immolation are important skills to unlock and use as often as possible. These apply frost and burn damage with every hit when active, but to activate them, you need to perform a bunch of hits without taking any damage yourself, so prioritize blocking and parrying to preserve your elemental buildup. Don't forget about leveraging stun either. Filling up the stun bar under an enemy's health bar will make them fall down and prompt you to use a powerful R3 stun grab by clicking your right stick. Optimize your use of rage by only using it when necessary, either to gain some health, get yourself out of a sticky situation, or prevent a fatal blow. And remember, you don't have to use all of your rage every time you trigger it. You can cancel rage at any time the same way you started, by pressing the left and right thumbsticks. Some enemy attacks are telegraphed using colored rings to indicate how you can deal with them. Red rings are the worst. These are unblockable and unparryable, so be ready to dodge them. Double blue rings are also unblockable, but can be interrupted by double tapping L1 to use a shield bash if you're quick enough. Yellow rings will break your block and stagger you, unless you time a parry perfectly, which staggers the enemy instead. The yellow ring is telegraphed pretty early, so wait until it's about to disappear before trying to parry. Any attack that doesn't have a colored ring can be blocked or parried normally. The arena in Niflheim is a great place to practice everything we're covering in this video. This area unlocks early in the story, and you can fight here with infinite health and enemy respawns. It's also smart to grind your most used skills here to unlock their tokens, which lets you use a boost to make them even stronger. It costs some XP to unlock these boosts, but once you unlock any one of them for a particular skill, you can switch between all three of the options for free, so don't worry about which one you pick first. Alright, now that we've covered the basics, let's dive into the good stuff, starting with parrying and blocking. Both of these actions are performed by holding L1 to bring out your shield. The only difference between a parry and a block is that a parry occurs automatically when you press L1 at the last second. Now, you do want to hold down L1, not tap it. Think of a parry as the exact same as a block. You're just starting it at the last second. In general, enemy attack animations have a bit of a wind-up to let you know they're about to happen. That means you often need to wait a bit longer than you'd think to start holding L1 to parry. Parries are strong because they simultaneously stagger enemies and apply stun. In fact, you can stagger and apply stun to multiple enemies at once if they're close together. The best shield for parrying is the Dauntless, and I'd actually argue the Dauntless is the best shield in the game. Despite it being focused on parrying, you can still block with it like any other shield, so there's really no downside, and its special ability is great. On a successful parry, the Dauntless will gain some charge, indicated by it glowing yellow for a partial charge or red for a full charge. You get yellow from an OK parry and red from a perfectly timed one. You can unleash the charge by using a shield bash, which is triggered by double tapping L1 just like with any other shield. However, a shield bash from a charged dauntless will blast enemies backwards and deal a large amount of stun. This is really useful for controlling the pace of a fight, building up to an R3 attack, and knocking small enemies off ledges. Now, it's tempting to immediately do a shield bash when you get your dauntless charged, but the enemies will already be staggered from your successful parry, so you're wasting a bit of additional stagger time by doing it right away. Instead, if you can, wait about 3 seconds after parrying before doing the shield bash to optimize the amount of overall stagger time. Keep in mind you can parry projectiles too, which bounces them off your shield. You'll often end up sending the projectile back at the enemy that fired it, but it actually goes in whatever direction you're facing, so you can hit other enemies too. While the double tap L1 shield bash is particularly powerful on the dauntless, don't forget about using it at other times too. It's the easiest way to break an enemy's block and can also be used to interrupt them and apply some stun. To make shield bashes a bit quicker to use, I bound it to swipe up on my controller touchpad. The Niflheim Arena is a great place to practice your parries. Spend a solid 10 minutes here doing nothing but parrying and I guarantee you'll improve. That being said, you don't need to parry to be successful. If you're more of a blocker, then I recommend using the Stonewall shield. This one will charge up while blocking attacks and can then unleash a ground slam with an L1 double tap, launching enemies into the air where you can juggle them for easy kills. Wait until it's glowing red with a full charge before doing this to ensure enemies do actually get launched. The other really nice benefit of the Stonewall is that it's the only shield that can block those yellow ring attacks. But once it's glowing red, it can't block them anymore, so make sure you use the charge when you get it. Whatever shield you choose, it will also be useful for canceling, a subtle but important mechanic. Canceling refers to cutting off an attack animation early by using another input to interrupt it. Now, using cancels to speed up combat is definitely more of an advanced tactic, so I'll save the deep dive here for another video. But the key takeaway here for all players is that you're pretty much never committed to completing a full attack animation. You always have a way out, either by holding or tapping L1 to pull out your shield, or by dodging. Let's talk about our two dodge options by the way, a single tap sidestep or a double tap roll. Now, I think most players have a tendency to roll much more often than necessary. It's important to train yourself to use the single tap sidestep more often. Contrary to how it looks, this simple move can actually keep you safe from most attacks. In fact, the only times when you should use a double tap roll is when you need to get some distance from the enemy quickly or know an attack with a large AoE is coming. Otherwise, train yourself to use the single tap dodge. Doing a single tap dodge will actually allow you to continue a skill combo if you were in the middle of one. That's important because skills requiring a chain of inputs generally deal more damage on their final hit, so you want to get to those whenever possible. Also, a sidestep has much faster recovery than a roll, helping to ensure you don't miss an opportunity to deal damage or parry. Speaking of staying close to enemies, generally, God of War rewards playing aggressively. If you hang back, enemies will either bombard you with annoying ranged attacks or close in on you anyway, so offense really is the best defense most of the time. Also, being far away often means you'll miss opportunities to deal damage or take advantage of staggers and stuns, which only draws out the fight and makes dying more likely. Instead, you'll want to take control by closing in on enemies quickly yourself. You should definitely unlock the Hyperion Grapple skill as soon as you can. This is an upgrade from the Hyperion Pull, which drags an enemy towards you by holding L2 and tapping R1. Hyperion Grapple flips this around, pulling you towards the enemy by holding R1, simultaneously closing the gap and ending in a collision that deals a solid amount of stun damage. In fact, as you get more powerful, Hyperion Grapple becomes one of the best ways to apply stun, filling an enemy's stun meter anywhere from 25 to 75%. Hyperion Grapple is also one of the few ways to interrupt red ring attacks with relative ease, so this is a great skill to work into your gameplay. Another method for closing the distance on enemies is to use the forward dodge skills for the axe and blades. I tend to prefer spinning chaos on the blades for this, as opposed to whirling storm on the axe. Also consider using frost rush on the axe and rushing chaos on the blades to close in quickly. These are a bit easier to use since you just need to sprint and press R1. You can repeat any of these skills to close larger gaps. I think a lot of players, myself included, forget to use the quick turn function to spin around and face enemies coming up from the sides or behind. Unfortunately, the default button combo of L1 and down on the D-pad makes this difficult to use because you'll often end up pulling out your shield instead of executing the quick turn. So I mapped it to swipe down on my touchpad, which feels pretty natural and snappy. I think we also often forget about verticality. You'll often find platforms and ledges you can grab grapple to during a fight. Enemies can climb up and down as well, but they're pretty slow to do this, so take advantage of this to gain the upper hand or temporarily disengage to reposition or find a health stone. Even when you don't have grapple points, small ledges can serve the same purpose. By the way guys, if you find videos like this one helpful, leaving a like lets me know you'd like to see more content like this and really does help out the channel, so it would be much appreciated if you feel I've earned it. Let's dive a little deeper on R3 stun grabs, which are the whole point of building up stun. Not only do these deal a large amount of damage, but you'll also have invincibility frames during the entire animation. Additionally, certain gear can give nice bonuses for using stun grabs, such as the Nidavellir chest piece that will heal you while performing one. Check out my early game build guide if you're interested in that. The most effective ways to build up stun quickly are by using Kratos' fists, the shield, and Atreus' sonic arrows. Combine these by sheathing your weapons and using R1 for the fists, L1 for the shield bash, and square for the arrows. Once you get an R3 stun grab, it will glow either yellow or red. Yellow means you'll deal a bunch of damage, but you won't kill the enemy. Keep in mind you can continue hitting them while they're down with regular attacks until the prompt turns red, indicating you can finish them with the R3 attack. You'll also deal additional stun damage by hitting enemies in the back or pinning them against a wall, so take advantage of that when you can. Getting small enemies airborne is another way to incapacitate them and deal easy damage. One of the easiest ways to do this is use the Hyperion pull skill we mentioned earlier by holding L2 to aim and tapping R1 to grab them with a chain. Once they're in the air, you can repeat this skill to smack them into the ground over and over again, or you can switch to Blazing Surge or Blazing Explosion to apply burn by continuing to hold L2 and either tapping or holding R2. Now, the skill menu doesn't tell you this, but you can actually hold R1 to do a double chain slam as well. Another great way to get enemies up is to use Frost Ascent on the axe. This requires you apply Permafrost by holding triangle down first, or using one of the more advanced Permafrost skills, and then hitting R2 to perform a heavy attack. You should also know that a regular R2 heavy attack from the axe or the Chaos Slam running heavy attack from the blades can get enemies airborne as well. The axe is a little easier, so that's generally what I use. Okay, let's talk elements. As you know, frost from the axe slows enemies down, and fire from the blades will build up the burn state, which deals damage over time. On their own, both of these are useful, but using them in combination with the Vaporize Frost and Extinguish Flame skills is where the real power is. With these skills unlocked, you can deal bonus damage by first applying one of the elemental states and then using melee attacks with the opposite weapon. I have a slight preference for applying Frost with the axe and then doing melee damage with the blades, since many of the blade attacks are faster, but it works well the other way around too. However, for these to be useful, you need to be able to apply those elemental states quickly and easily. Building up elemental states becomes easier later on. But for most of the game, the easiest way to apply burn is with the Flaming Whiplash skill in combination with either the R1 Scorched Sweep or R2 Scorched Earth follow-up. Tap triangle repeatedly to get the blade spinning, and then use either skill repeatedly to build up burn. It takes 6 taps of triangle to fully charge Flaming Whiplash, but even if you have to use it early, it will still apply some burn, so don't overcommit to doing 6 taps no matter what. You can also hold triangle to get Flaming Whiplash going, but tapping charges it much faster. As for applying Frost with the axe, we have a few options. The easiest method is to unlock the Glacial Rake skill and hold R1 to do it repeatedly. You can do infinite Glacial Rakes this way. Just be careful you don't get carried away and ignore other enemies. To do this even faster, you can dodge cancel between each Glacial Rake to shorten the animation, making its application of Frost even faster. As mentioned earlier, using Frost Ascent is another good way to apply a nice chunk of frost damage, and that actually brings us to the first combo I want to break down for you guys. I'll probably do a whole video on combos at some point, but for now, let's check out a few basic ones I think are worth mastering. For the first, Frost the axe by holding triangle. Now execute a Frost Ascent by simply hitting an enemy with R2. This will apply some frost and launch them into the air. Follow this up by holding L1 for repeated Glacial Rakes until you've built up the full frost state. Finally, switch to the blades to deal a bunch of damage to the frozen enemy with some basic R1 and R2 hits. So that full combo is triangle to frost the axe, R2 Frost Ascent, hold R1 for Glacial Rakes until frosted, then switch to the blades for damage. And remember, you can speed up those Glacial Rakes by dodge canceling between each. This is a great way to both deal damage safely, since the enemy will be either airborne or staggered most of the time, and apply frost buildup. It's also a good way to build up permafrost, which will cause every axe hit to apply frost damage, but only activates after a series of hits without taking any damage yourself. Similarly, Immolation does the same thing with burn on the blades, and it's worth noting that the charge for permafrost and Immolation will transfer between the weapons, so don't worry about losing progress by swapping. For the blades, I have a couple of hidden mini combos. As you guys know, the last part of the basic R1 combo is a more powerful hit. To get this early, you can do 2 R2 heavies and then 2 R1s. This will get you the first 2 heavy hits of the normal R2 combo and the last 2 hits of the R1 combo. Perhaps slightly less useful is doing it the other way around. R1, R1, R2, R2 will give you the first 2 hits of the normal R1 light combo and the final 2 hits of the R2 heavy combo. Alright guys, those are all my essential combat tips for God of War Ragnarok. I hope this guide helps you improve your skills and enjoy the game more. If you enjoyed the video or learned something new, leaving a like would be much appreciated. And if you have a tip to share, definitely leave a comment down below. Also, for those of you that want to discuss Ragnarok in more depth, use the link in the description to come join us over on my Discord server. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.